I actually started my professional career as a school teacher. So for the first 4 years of my professional career, I taught development geography and history. So even though I'm not working in the education sector anymore, it's a profession, teaching that is still very close to my heart, and one that I think is a very good basis for working internationally. Definitely by accident. I actually had been teaching for 4 years in Australia, and I decided to volunteer and go and teach in Africa for a year, and I was actually sent to Liberia. And the day I got there, the Civil War started in 1990. So within a matter of weeks, most of the children I was teaching had become refugees in Guinea. So I was faced with the choice of going back to Australia and being unemployed, or trying to find work in Liberia. So I walked into the UN office and asked them if they had a job, and I met with a guy who was working with UNDRO, United Nations Disaster Relief, which is now OCHA, and he gave me a job on the spot, and the next day I was organising a food distribution for displaced people in Monrovia, and that's how I joined the UN system. So definitely by accident. Well, I wouldn't propose to anybody that they sort of think about entering the UN like that. But what I will say is that a lot of people I've known who have been in the right place at the wrong time have ended up working in international work. So one piece of advice I would give young people is, don't be afraid to take a risk if you are particularly passionate about a particular geographical area or a particular NGO or something, because often by just being there, you're given the opportunity to work internationally. I think when people look at my rather athletic physique, they never sort of contemplate that I was once an elite athlete. But it's actually true that I represented Australia in rowing, and so that's something that I'm very proud of, but by looking at me you wouldn't necessarily know that. A number of things drive me. I have a number of personal things that drive me. Most notably, I'm a father, and being an excellent father and an excellent role model to my son is something that's paramount in my thinking. Professionally, what drives me is really taking organisations and trying to get the best out of people so that organisations can get the best job done that they can possibly get. And I really see the power of having really engaged, really positive people in the workplace that can really then make a tangible difference on the ground. My proudest achievement with UNFPA would be some of the transformative initiatives that the Division of Human Resources collectively have introduced in the last couple of years. Most notably, I think we have a very good HR strategy. We've introduced the leadership pool, which is a really interesting way of addressing a whole lot of different pressures in human resources, including succession planning, recruitment, development, staff development, etc. And also, I think, again, collectively with human resources, this is not something that I can take individual achievement for, but really putting a lot of effort into rethinking the way that human resources is done in UNFPA. The nicest surprise about UNFPA for me, by far, was the fact that UNFPAers, that is the people working in UNFPA, are really passionate about what they do. And for me, that's just a fantastic starting point to building a great organisation. They might have a few idiosyncrasies on the edges, but the fact that you have people that are engaged and are passionate about the mandate just makes it such an exciting place to work. Apart from the skill set, the substantive skills, and apart from the fact that they can technically do the job, I really look for a value proposition in what we're getting in candidates. One of the questions I often ask in interviews is, look, you've got a great job already, why do you want to come and work for UNFPA? And that's a very telling question, because for some people it's all about them, for other people it's all about their commitment to the values of UNFPA and what UNFPA is trying to achieve. So I certainly look for the value proposition. I look for people that are positive, that can fill a room when they come in and really make a difference. And I look for people that also embrace the UN as a larger entity. The UN is an organisation, or a number of organisations that is quite diverse. It has a lot of problems, but it's a fantastic organisation. I want to find people that really embrace what the UN is about. I remember one question we asked, and the question was, tell me about a time when you've made a cultural mistake, and what did you learn from that? And I had a young man in front of me, and he looked at me very intently for about 30 seconds, and then he said to me, I don't like your question. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you don't like my question, but tell me about a time when you've made a cultural mistake, and what did you learn from that? And his ultimate response was, I don't make mistakes, cultural or otherwise, which I found was a fantastic mistake to make, but, and certainly one that showed a complete lack of awareness, of self-awareness, and a lack of EQ. So, but I've had a lot of funny responses, but this is one of the fun things about doing interviews. I remember I was doing the Young Professionals program for UNDP, and we asked a question, why do you want to come and work for UNDP? And there was a young lady from South Korea, and she really thought about the question. She said, look, in 1953, Korea was the poorest country on earth. It had a lower GDP than anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa. And my grandfather was lucky enough to get a job on a UNDP project, which allowed him to send my father to a good school. He got a good job in government as a result of that, which allowed him to send my sister and myself to good schools and good universities. I think it's time now for me to give back to UNDP. And it was a very, very powerful, very, very spontaneous response. I remember there were 3 women on the panel and myself. The 3 women were crying, and it was just a very powerful response.